Welcome to the Healers Podcast, where we inspire and guide healers through business expansion. We give voice to incredibly abundant healers to share their stories. We dive into the quantum field to unlock the energies of conscious creation. We also develop digital tools to help you grow, which you can find on healless.com. I'm your host, Yuli, and I'm grateful you chose to join this space. Now let's go deep. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another great episode of the Healers Podcast. Today, we have a super special guest with us, straight from Tenerife from the Canary Islands. A funny coincidence, I was just there a couple of weeks ago, and my dear friend, Timi Orosz, is a spiritual business mentor, authentic marketing expert, and entrepreneur scaling up businesses that make a positive impact. She's an ex-CEO who resigned to live in a jungle for a while to recalibrate. And then she created Connect One Marketing after many years of trying to find a balance between her spiritual development and her love for creating value in businesses. As you can hear just from this intro, she is my favorite kind of person. We can talk for hours, all things business and spirituality. And I'm just so excited to have her on the podcast. To set my intention for this episode, I would say that I would love to really dive deep into some of the business topics that tend to be intimidating and maybe not resonate always with healers. But I would love to tap into them in a very inspiring way and make them put that sense of ease into anything business related. With that said, I would love to introduce Timi and have her share her intention as well.
That's a beautiful intention. Thank you so much for being able to witness that as well. And thank you for having me on this podcast. My intention for today's episode is something similar, actually. What I was going to say that I would love to remove the monster under the bed when it comes to creating and planning spiritual businesses, because there are a lot of topics, I think, that scare healers, especially when it comes to creating anything on the business perspective and on the business front. So I want to make sure that I can simplify as much of that as I possibly can, so anyone can go out there and confidently start creating these wonderful and impactful ventures to make our world a better place.
Incredible. And I would love to start by just getting a better idea. How do you work with healers? I mean, you're doing something so unique that I don't know many people or any people that do what you do. So can you help us describe the typical client or a typical session with you? How do you work with people usually?
Of course, there are a lot of similarities actually within my clients. And the number one thing that they all have in common is that they are scared of becoming entrepreneurs. And that's what I see happening at the very beginning, that when someone realizes that, okay, I have these amazing skills, I have the ability to help humanity heal, and I can pass on these gifts. But when it comes to creating an actual reality out of that vision, they become a little bit paralyzed because they feel that they know nothing about business, or maybe it seems the entire business topic is just too scary. And I think a lot of them have these misconceptions about what it actually takes to start and grow a business. So usually what I do with them is I help them declutter. That's my number one step, to make sure that we are removing all the activities that are distracting them. So no more scrolling aimlessly on social media, please, but making sure that you actually get to be seen by the right people who really need your healing abilities, so you can actually pass on your knowledge to the world. But the confusion is always there. And I feel that most of my clients, it doesn't matter what activity they do, what sort of healing modalities they are doing, they feel genuinely confused and overwhelmed when it comes to marketing and developing their businesses. So I like to always figure out, who are you as a person and what sort of strategies can we build that will align with who you are on an energetic level? Because there isn't such a thing within the spiritual industry that there is this one size fits all strategy that's going to work for every healer out there. That doesn't work, because it needs to resonate with you based on who you are, what your life lessons were previously, what makes you you. And you need to bring that into your business activities, your core message, your business development strategy, your communication, everything that your business does has to literally be talking about who you are deep within, not as in this physical form, but really beneath all the skin and the bones, like what makes you you. And that is usually the biggest part of my work. So I mix a lot of this kind of inner work, but then I add another layer of the actual business execution. So I roll up my sleeves when I work with my clients, and I make sure that I can help them execute. Because what I've noticed as well, when I worked with mentors or coaches before, it was a great experience. But when I was finishing the session, I was just left on my own. And I'm like, am I going to do this really? Or do you know what I want to do? So I wanted to make sure that my clients will not feel that way. And I wanted to make sure that I can literally hold their hands for a little while so they can start executing and they can start getting those clients and have a very clear vision about where the business is going, so they can become confident in owning that entrepreneurship journey, basically. So in a nutshell, I could talk about this for hours, especially with you, because we have a good dynamic. But usually I would say the biggest thing is simplifying that idea generation process and making that into a reality that fits them, only them.
Mm-hmm. No, that's incredible. There's so many interesting nuggets and so many follow-up questions I have. But just to start from the kind of the beginning, how do you find who the person is and what resonates? Like, is there certain tools or what is the technique that you're using to customize that experience to each client?
One that I really love using pretty much for all of my clients is something that I call the empathy map, especially for healers usually are highly empathetic creatures as well. That's what I love the most about them. So what we do is an exercise when we map out their ideal target audience. So when we try to figure out who are the kind of people that they would actually genuinely would be excited to work with, instead of just trying to identify a gap within the market or trying to find some kind of an audience that they could potentially working with, but they're not feeling excited about. So I always try to tell them that when you are trying to build your business in a sustainable way, you need to be attracting clients that are very similar to you. And that happens anyway. You will end up getting clients that you have something in common with them. And if you are able to relate to your clients and they can also relate to you, you will see that the whole sales journey then becomes incredibly easy because you get each other. So we start always with that, like mapping out who these potential people are. What are these people are thinking? What are they feeling? What are they doing? And how are they actually behaving? Then we go a second sort of layer deeper into that process. And we really look at, okay, looking at your skill set, looking at your experience, looking at the healing modalities, the tools, the methods that you're using. Can we apply this to this selected audience? And if yes, how do we position this? And how can we make sure that they are genuinely going to be benefiting from what you have to offer? So if you're listening right now and not quite sure how to get in front of the right audience, I would recommend you doing that initially. Figure out who would be your next best friend. If you had to go out there right now to find your next best friend, how would you describe that person? What sort of personal traits that person have? What sort of healing needs that person has? So that would be your ideal client in a very simple kind of way. But that's usually the starting point. And it really depends on the character and the person that I'm working with, because everyone has incredible stories. And maybe one day I'll write a book about all these stories that I heard.
Please do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll let you know. They're absolutely inspiring. The life challenges, the ups, the downs, the inner transformation. And all of these stories are really painful as well. And I can see them as they are sharing like how they ended up where they are today. It was not an easy and fun and all love and light and rainbow sort of journey, but it was real inner work and transformation. And that's what makes them really unique. And that's exactly what's going to set them apart. So when it comes to creating the strategies and understanding who they need to serve, we always look at the sort of key milestones of their lives. So that's another exercise I always introduce, and that's something, if you're listening, you can do this as well. Create a simple journey, like draw it on a piece of paper with a nice pen, just draw a little curved road on that paper and try to draw those biggest milestones that really stand out when you look back on your life, because that becomes the core message of what you do. And that will give you some very clear insights to what sort of people you should be working with, because whatever you went through in your own personal life, there are a lot of people out there who are experiencing it right now. And who's better to help them during that phase of their life, if not you, who already went through it successfully and now you are on the other side of that process. So there are a lot of different sort of methods and business tools that I use, but I do it in a fun way so it doesn't become scary, because that's what I said when I was setting my intention for this episode, that I know that business, the topic itself, is overwhelming for most healers. And there's a lot of terminology and concepts that can feel a little bit intimidating. So I try to make it fun, so they realize that building a business is actually a lot of fun if it's done in an aligned way.
Mm-hmm. No, that's beautifully said. And you also, I noticed on your website, you have this business starter tool, and it has a lot of worksheets and templates to work on. Can you talk a little bit about how did you develop those templates, and how did you come up with? Was it through kind of experience, seeing what's the most common things that people need help with? How did you approach all those beautiful and fun templates?
You're the first person who ever asked me this, so I'm so happy that someone did ask me. So thank you for that.
That's why we get along so well.
Yeah, definitely. So it was a lot of strategy behind this. So I'm the kind of person who I like to blend my creativity and my analytical and strategical brains. And I just love switching between these two so that I can create really useful tools for the spiritual community. So the way how it started was actually back in 2020. I was sitting on my balcony I lived in Barcelona at the time. And I just felt like writing, and I felt like I need to write a book. I need to write something. I need to create something. It has to come out. And I knew really well that it has to be a business related book, because I live and love business. I love everything about that. But I also knew that I didn't want to do it just for business. I wanted this book to really serve a purpose, to really help someone. And that someone has to be a community that sits so close to my heart, which is the spiritual community. So I was sitting on my balcony that one night. I poured myself a nice glass of wine. It's beautiful, nice evening. And I started writing. Pen and paper, I'm old school. And the entire book just came through. And these were exactly 11 steps that I ended up writing. And at that time, the number 11 was so close to me, it kept on popping up. That was my little guidance. So 11 chapters with 11 exercises came through in about a few hours, just constant writing. And then when I read it back, I'm like, okay, this is kind of half channeled, half brain-based sort of writing. So I said, this has to be put in front of the right people. So I turned it into an ebook initially when I launched my website, Connect My Marketing. And that's when I wanted to test it. I really wanted to make sure, is it just me who thinks this is good, or does it actually resonate with people? Does it actually provide value to them? So I ran it for about a few months to get some feedback. I gave it out for free as a lead magnet initially. I got the feedback. I changed a few chapters. I updated the visuals. So it went through a lot of editing based on how is it right now. And the idea behind this book was to really help someone as literally a workbook, a working book. Okay. So the book is working for you. That was the whole idea. Not just another PDF, not just another ebook, but something that is working for you as you are going through the chapters. And it's a really short read as well. I didn't want to overwhelm the readers. And it is a step-by-step guide for them to do everything when it comes to starting a spiritual business. So that includes the financial planning, creating your services, doing market research, and coming up with the name, the visuals. So all of those core elements that someone needs to think about when they are building a business is included in there in very simple terms. So I try to show the perspective of building a business is not that crazy difficult. Okay. So that's how it started basically. And over the time, I kept repeating the same process. So every time I launched something new, I always released it first as a little freebie to get the initial feedback from my readers and from my audience. And if something sort of didn't work out, I binned it because it happens. Not every of my ideas are going to be great. And same goes for you as well. You try something, it works, the other one might not work. So keep trying and testing to understand what your audience really wants. So what I did over the last 3 years, all of my resources and these digital tools that I created, I picked the best performing ones and I rolled them into this bundle, this toolkit that basically will lead someone through all of those crucial steps to put together a business, including coming up with the brand name. How do you create the brand name? What should you think about when you are creating a name for your business? Or breaking down the essential business planning phase without that very dry and complex business sort of process. So I try to make it fun as well. And I made it into an editable PDF, so we don't even have to print it. So we are saving the trees. So it would be nice for people to do it just from that perspective. Yeah.
So tell me, why does a healer need a business plan?
To help them understand where they are going, very simply. So don't try to envision it as one of those super complex business plans with a lot of Excel sheets and all of the numbers in it. So this is a very simplified version of having kind of like a compass so that you know where you are heading and you know what you are doing and how you are getting there. And I broke this into 3 core elements when it comes to planning the foundations of your business, which would be understanding the who. Who are you serving? Okay. Who is your target audience? How do you define that? How do you figure out what should you take into account? And I weaved in a lot of journaling questions to make it more in line with my audience, because journaling is a great way to work on ourselves. So we can use the same approach when we are doing business planning. You can literally turn a business planning activity into a journaling exercise. And I think when you start looking at it from that perspective as a healer, that actually, if I work on myself pretty much every day, I can also work on my business using the exact same approach. It's nothing but journaling at the end of the day and using a bit of external resources, right?
I love this so much. I've never heard that analogy, and it's so spot on, because so many of us get into journaling these days, right? Suddenly it becomes one of those mindfulness activities that people are doing, and it's so easy to get into. But if you think about a business plan as a journal, I mean, it's just brilliant. I feel like it makes it. This is why I think a lot of those ideas, it's all about the definitions and the labels that we put on them, right? Once you call something a business plan, immediately it has those like scary frequencies for so many people. But if you call it a business journaling or just journaling, suddenly it just becomes this fun activity that you're looking forward to every morning.
And it's true for many other aspects as well when it comes to building a business. And I use the same kind of approach in all of my materials. So you can see that I'm not just trying to give them the tools and like, this is what you need to do, but at the same time, sort of demolishing these misconceptions, what you mentioned, that sometimes you are just scared because we associate a certain term like a business plan with something super scary or really dry or really lengthy. But when we realize that we can look at things from a different perspective, it can become a really fun process that feels really genuine for us as well. So we can remain our real selves while we are doing that activity. If somebody is a healer, nobody is expecting them to be business strategists. Nobody is expecting any of the healers to know how to market themselves. Nobody is teaching them, right? You are there to heal. But then you can take away these sort of simplified steps. And the second and the third section within that business plan, besides who you should be serving, is also helping you figure out the very basics and the foundations of how you are going to be serving these people and with what. So if you can work out these 3 elements for you already, the who, the what, and the how, you kind of have already the core foundations of your business plan. And you can jazz it up if you want to with all the numbers and projections. I don't want to scare you and bore you with that. But at the end of the day, if you're doing it just for yourself to make sure that you have a clear vision, you don't need all that. You can do some financial planning, you can set yourself targets and goals, but I don't see that is happening very often within the healer community. But I'm also trying to show them in a different perspective. And I use another example there when it comes to financial planning, that when you are planning or setting your targets, your financial targets, is nothing different than using the law of attraction method. Same thing. You're doing it for your personal life. You're setting all these big, beautiful goals, these big visions. You have maybe a mood board and a vision board. And you can do the same thing for your business. Just put a number to it. That's it. And you can say, this month, I want to truly support 5 beautiful souls. That's already your customer number is planned for you. And you don't have to be so dry about it. So try to play with it. And I think what was missing from business for a very long time in any industry is that playfulness, that softness, that nurturing approach. And healers have that. Like, you guys listening to this, like, that is your top skill. You are the nurturing type. So please bring that to the forefront, because the entire business world need a lot more of that.
This is music to my soul. This is just so beautifully said. I couldn't agree more. I just feel like sometimes it's almost someone made it so scary and dry to like keep people away from it.
Yep.
In a way, and block that kind of ability and that flow of abundance that is associated, that is behind a lot of those numbers and terms and definitions. And if we can just unblock it for all of us once and forever, and put, like you say, either playful spin or just really unlabel it.
Yeah.
it would just help so many people, because I mean, so many healers I'm talking to, a lot of them say the same thing. I shy away from finances. I don't like to talk about finances. I want to stay away. This is not part of my business. And there's so many limited beliefs around the topic of money. And I just feel like if we can all collectively unlock that once and forever, and whatever it takes, right? But add that nurturing element to it, and really connect it back to the flow of abundance, which is what money is.
Exactly. You're so right. And that's actually within that workbook that I was talking about. That is the first chapter, to help people shift their mindset about money in general. Because the initial title of the book, which I changed because I know it was scaring my audience, it was initially called to Stop Resisting Financial Success. Then I realized that it wasn't really sitting too well for my audience and they were not really loving it. But that's basically what the first chapter is about, because what you need to realize that you chose this timeline right now, right? Like, you want it to be here now, not 5,000 years ago when money didn't really exist as it does today. But even 5,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, all the healers, all the spiritual teachers, they were still compensated for their work, but it wasn't in a form of money. It was compensated in a form of, I don't know, food and shelter, or a title, even being the healer or the shaman of the village, that came with certain privileges. So whoever is bringing up this argument, and I get this a lot, I get attacked a lot about this actually, that people say that you shouldn't be making money because of spiritual skills. Okay, then if you can choose, like, do I make money using spiritual knowledge and skills, or do I make money doing something that completely destroys my soul and the planet? You can choose. Which one do you think is better for you and for the collective, right? So when this argument is being brought up that it is unethical to charge for healing or spiritual services, this is why you need to realize it. People were always charging for it. People were always compensated for it. But in our current timeline, what we are living now, we are using money as an exchange for that compensation. And before, it was, as I mentioned, the food, the shelter, the title, the privileges. So it was never really a statement. People were not recognized or rewarded for their gifts and their work. We just call it something else now. So the sooner you can see it from that perspective, that it's not just okay for you to make money using your spiritual gifts and your knowledge, but it's needed. The world needs more of that, whether you want to accept it or not. But the sooner you accept it, the easier the ride will become for everyone. And I have this vision that I would really love to see a lot more businesses on the forefront that are spiritual businesses, the healers being out there, the spiritual coaches, the teachers, the educators, all of them should be in the forefront and not companies that are drilling the bottom of the ocean.
I would love to see healers on the Forbes list or one of those top billionaires lists, right?
You could call it the Force list. Let's rename the magazine, the Force.
There is a top healers list, but it's not necessarily connected to their abundance. No, I couldn't agree more. And the way I look at money, and, a lot of us also, people who come from a communist childhood, we have very complex relationship with money. And it took, so many healing sessions to unlock that for myself. But I really started seeing money as energy and something that is a privilege to have, because then I can invest it in things that are benefiting humanity, society, and planet. And it's a big responsibility and a privilege as well. I couldn't agree more. And this is part of the big mission of this podcast, having these conversations and normalizing them in the healing space specifically, and really inspire more healers to, at the very least, like dig into that belief, right? And see what comes up.
Absolutely. And it is a painful process. I'm not going to lie. And you know that as well, like demolishing all these beliefs that you have around money, and even the fact to like accepting it or even facing these truths within you. And that is probably the sort of most, scariest or painful parts of the process. But the sooner you start digging and the sooner you start removing these false layers of, misconceptions from you, you will realize that your entire world actually changes, not just within, but physically as well, because you are letting go of all of these baggages that you've been carrying with you. And I completely get you what you say about, our upbringing, because I was brought up in Hungary as well, like that region. So I know what it means to have this kind of mentality. And one of my biggest sort of misconceptions I had to work through was that I had this belief that you have to work hard to make money. I think that was something that a lot of people can resonate with. And there are a lot of misconceptions around that, especially for healers. This can be true because maybe it doesn't feel like hard work when you're doing, a Reiki session. Of course, it's hard work. You are working with energy. It's harder than maybe being in a factory all day. I don't know. But it maybe from the outside, it doesn't seem that hard or that difficult. And maybe people are resisting and that belief to think, can I really have success, financial success by doing this and, realigning chakras all day? Can I really do this? And yes, you can. You should. So please go out there and do it and give yourself that financial freedom. Okay.
No, that's amazing. Incredible advice. And, what is, from all your incredible work with clients, what is kind of the biggest transformation that you've seen, without maybe share details? But can you just tell maybe something most common that you're seeing, like a block that someone overcame, or you work together that transform someone's practice?
There's a lot of them that came to mind. So I try to cherry pick a few, which is a little bit difficult. But the examples that popped into my mind, actually, they all have one thing in common. So maybe I just mentioned that thing, that I've had 3 or 4 clients that had very similar blocks in front of them, which was, they had a clear vision. They already had their spiritual businesses up and running. They came to me just to get more clients, just to refine their messaging and have a bit of strategy in place. But when we started working together, we realized that the vision that they thought they had nothing to do with who they were. So I felt like a bit of a wrecking ball during the sessions, because we completely demolished everything that they have built up until that point. But I am so proud of them for being able to let go of what was not serving them. Because what happened is that when they started these spiritual businesses, that was maybe 5-10 years ago, they outgrew them. They became a completely different person than who they were 5 or 10 years ago. And they were still holding on to that original title. Like, I'm a coach, or I'm a healer, I'm a this, I'm a teacher. You're not that anymore. You grew, you have evolved, but your business didn't. You left your business in the same spot where you were 5 years ago. And you cannot allow that to happen. And as a healer as well, you will see that you will be growing over the years. So even if you feel that, no, this is it, that's all I'm destined to do, this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, I can tell you this, no. There will be a point when you realize, oh, actually, this is a new modality I haven't used, or maybe I can do a group healing session that I didn't think of before. Or maybe I could start supporting other healers. Maybe I can organize an event for healers to educate them and train them. There are many ways for you to grow as a healer within your own business as well. So you will see, if you are doing all the inner work on you, your business will need to match that. As you are evolving, your business needs to evolve with you. And with these examples that came to my mind, that's exactly what happened. So what we ended up doing, instead of what I thought we were going to be doing, I'm like, great, we're just refining the copy a little bit here and doing a bit of that, and completely different direction, because we had to go back to the foundations and understand, who are you right now, and what is the new vision. So if you are listening and you feel that maybe my vision is not as exciting and what's wrong with me, nothing is wrong with you. It's fine. If you feel that maybe your selected audience, your target audience doesn't excite you anymore, it's perfectly okay to step away from it and expand on the kind of people that you want to work with. And you probably heard this expression a lot more nowadays. We call it the soul clients, right? Within the spiritual industry, it's not the target audience, it's your soul client. But it is called a soul client because it has to be in line with you on a soulful, energetic level. So if you have evolved in the last 6 months, 6 years, 6 days even, who knows what you're going through, it needs to reflect on what you do as well. So don't be afraid to change the vision in your mind. Don't be afraid to let go of what is not serving you anymore. And maybe it could be the services that you offer. Maybe it could be the business itself. Maybe it's the name of the business that doesn't sit well with you anymore. We had that as well. I had this client, she was from Australia. She's a beautiful shamanic healer. And she used to call herself spiritual coach for many years, and shamanic healer, and all these different titles, until she was like, hold on for a second. I'm none of that. I'm more of a counselor. So let me let go of these sort of titles and move into this different one. So this happens. And I think the best way for you to really realize where you are heading is reflecting every once in a while. Journaling, okay? Going back to that again. Do the same thing in your business. I do it myself as well. Like every sort of 3 to 4 months, I do the same exercise I give to my own clients as well. It's something that I usually go through these set of questions to really understand, like, are these still the same sort of causes I would want to fight for? Do I still feel that passionate about these things? If the answer is no, I'm like, oh, okay, hold on. Something needs to pivot and change a little bit because I'm evolving. So I hope that answers the question. I went a bit off topic though.
No, this is such a great point, actually. And it came up in my conversations with healers as well, because I feel like this is also really enhanced by all the accelerated energies that we're getting, and so many people going through evolution, transformation, and their practice is transforming, and not even yearly or monthly, like even daily. They're getting new downloads, new ideas, they're learning new modalities. So at some point, it's even kind of creating maybe like this paralysis. Like, okay, if I'm constantly evolving, how do I even call what I do? how do you deal with that?
That's when the business planning comes in hand. Because that's what happens. And it is very common actually for healers. And you reminded me of a very important point I wanted to talk about, that healers specifically have a very special trait when it comes to business building, that they are using more than one titles to describe what they do. And that leads to confusion. That is really confusing their audiences. So a Reiki master, I'm a psychic medium, I'm a acupuncturist, and all of these different titles are there to describe what they do. But that's just the way, that's just the how of how you do things. So what you are saying is, yes, you are going to be picking up all these different modalities, these new ideas, etc. But try to go back to the foundations, the core of you, and try to, without labeling you, try to really express yourself. And it's all about being heard and being seen. Okay. We are stepping our game up now. No more hiding. Try to express yourself. What am I? not who you are. What am I? And when I say this to my clients as well, they like look at me and the blank face, like, what do you mean? What am I? Like, I'm a person. I'm not an object. I'm like, no, like you need to take it, like look at it from a different perspective. And instead of looking at you as a being, as a person, look at you as the solution to the problem for your clients and define yourself in that perspective. What are you? What are you bringing to the table for your clients? So instead of trying to come up with all these cool titles and labels to describe who you are, try to figure out what you are and how you can communicate that. Because if you do that in a simple way, then you can add all these different modalities as you're evolving without confusing your audience or not knowing where you are heading. So I would try to maybe recommend this sort of constantly changing things up. Take a second look at your definition of what sort of impact you want to create. And I call this the impact statement. It's kind of like a mission statement or a vision statement, but define the impact, define the big picture and communicate that. And if your activities are no longer in line with your impact that you want to make in the world, that's when you know that you've outgrown your current journey. If it's still in line with your overall impact, you're on the right path. So that's a good control check for you to figure out, am I really just changing? Is that what's happening? Or am I getting distracted? Because all these cool new shiny alternatives are here. So define what you want in the long term. Start with that.
That is a really beautiful message. I would love to also give a chance to our listeners to get a better idea who you are and where you came from and how did you come up with this incredible knowledge and wisdom. And I know you also have a special offer for our audience, which I'm sure people are going to be thrilled to learn about. So please, your stage.
Yeah, so where I come from, maybe from a different galaxy, but from this planet, how I could define that is that I always knew that I'm here to shake things up a little bit. So my role in this collective is definitely to be that kind of innovative leader who's not going to follow the traditional methods. That I'm here to innovate and I'm here to stand up for justice. And what really sets my own soul on fire is seeing people thrive and really empowering people when it comes to sharing their gifts with the world. Doesn't matter what kind of gifts they are, but that is sort of my biggest role here, to empower that potential that is lying within these people. And my platform is business because I'm equally passionate about creating meaningful ventures. And I was fighting this for a long time, like the people resisting money. I was resisting the business success. I became really successful at a really young age. I was only 30 years old when I became a chief executive officer. I was managing a hotel, super cool, fun. I loved it, but I knew that this can't be it, right? I'm like, I have this deep calling in me that I need to be making our world a better place. Managing a hotel maybe helps the holiday makers a little bit, but that's not a big enough impact, right? It's not going to change the world in a good way. So I always felt that I was kind of wasting my potential in a way, even though I created amazing things. And I ended up burning myself out and I felt this really deep inner frustration. And that's when I started really analyzing myself to try to understand how can I use this love for building businesses and using marketing methods within the business development strategies to use it for something good, to use it for something impactful that makes our world a better place. So long story short, I don't want to go down the whole story of how I ended up in the jungle, but that was part of the process. I ran away, literally ran away from business success and lived in the jungle for a few months until I realized that whatever was happening in our lives, so in my case, that was the business success, that was leading me somewhere. And this is what I mentioned earlier, when you define your audience and what you do, look at your own life, because there are clues. We just don't want to see them. We are like, no, that's not me. I don't want to do this. That is you. Like, things are not happening by accident. Like, they were leading you to this. So in my case, it led me to creating something that is going to be serving the spiritual community, because I realized that unfortunately, a lot of healers, a lot of coaches, they do not have the business and marketing knowledge. And I wanted to create a platform that is going to be the resource for them. So that was the initial vision. And that's where I am 3.5 years later now, with lots of amazing, happy clients. And the little sort of gift that I brought to the listeners, and I really, with my intention, is to empower, as I mentioned, and give you that clarity and confidence to become an entrepreneur within your spiritual business as a healer, or 37 soulful business affirmations to really help you become more confident and have more clarity about what you do in your business. So I'm personally a big believer and a big fan of positive affirmations. I can see how they can turn someone's life around. And I wanted to create something like that, but for business. So a lot of them will be focusing on, okay, how do you call in those soul clients? And a lot of affirmations are based on getting and attracting new clients. But I have a lot of affirmations to boost your confidence as a spiritual being running a business. So I hope you will all like it, and hope they will give you that clarity and that confidence that I wanted you to have.
Thank you, Timi. This is such a treat. I can't wait to get those affirmations as well. I feel like I need to start working on my soul clients, since today it's actually the day we're recording this podcast is our official launch of Healist. So definitely a good time to start calling us soul clients. And
you're getting it straight away, after we press the stop button. They're going to you.
Amazing. Well, it was really such a treat to have you on the podcast, and so many super useful insights and fascinating conversation. I feel like we could talk for hours.
Yes.
And I hope to have you back we didn't touch much on the marketing side of things, and I know this is one of your other expertises, so maybe we'll do part 2 and talk about that. But thank you so much. And please check out connect1marketing.com. And your Instagram is amazing. I love all of your content and I follow it religiously. So again, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. And I can't wait to be back. And I'm wishing a lot of happy, soulful clients as well for Healist.
Thank you.